G'day Year 12 and thanks for listening to this YouTube clip. Today we're going to take a look at our very first business function, the very first topic of Year 12, which is HR, also standing for Human Resources. Now the Year 12 course is good in which there's a lot of repetition, but it makes it easy to be able to remember compared to the Year 11 course. We've got HR that we do first, then we follow up with operations, finance and marketing. Different schools do them in different orders, but that's what we choose to do. There's two parts to the syllabus that we look at, whether it be HR, finance or marketing, and that is the students learn to and the students learn about. And in theory, we're meant to go through and explicitly teach you guys the students learn about, and at the end of that, you should be able to do each of the particular syllabus dot points in the students learn to. Now, the first topic we're looking at is HR. We're also going to be looking at operations, finance and marketing throughout the year. We'll look at HR in just a second. But operations is the making of the product in a simple way. Finance is taking a look at the money, the coin, the cashola. We're going to look at financial statements, some things we looked at in Year 11 in a little bit more depth this year. And we're going to look at marketing, which involves, the traditional 4 Ps, but we'll look at an additional 3 Ps and a few other bits and pieces. Now, in terms of HR, what is this? Good definition I'd like you guys to use is HR, human resources, is the process of managing employees in the workplace. Now, on top of that, we need to know what human resource management is. Human resource management, HR management, is the process of managing staff within an organisation. It focuses on the relationship, the connection between the employer, the boss, and the employee, the worker, and how each of these stakeholders, these two main ones, are able to work together to achieve the goals of the business and also their individual goals. Now, as I said before, the syllabus for business studies is largely divided up into students learn to and students learn about. Now, students learn to questions are not always this case, but often you'll find that they're good questions for short answers or for essays, and time again they've been used in the actual HSC exam. And a quick guess, probably a quarter of the time. All right, so it's not a bad idea to make sure you understand what each of those dot points mean. I'm just going to quickly read through those 8 student learn to syllabus dot points, and by the end of human resources, I'll explicitly teach these to you. It's your job to make sure that you know what each of these mean and making sure that you can write a short answer on it or an essay for some of the more lengthy students learn to. Okay, the 8 student learns to include ability to discuss the influence of government on the process of determining employment contracts. The second students learn to dot point is to explain how businesses exhibit corporate social responsibility in the management of HR. Third dot point is to analyse the cause of 2 workplace disputes and the strategies used to resolve them. The fourth dot point of students learn to is to examine the advantages of a diverse, culturally competent workforce for a global business. Now, as I was saying before, that's 4 so far, but your task to do, not now, but towards the end of this business function in a term's time, is to make sure that you can write a decent amount on those things and properly answer essentially these questions. Now, the 5th through to the 8th dot point with the students learn to include to be able to explain the interdependence, the connections between the different business functions, explain the interdependence between HR and the other business functions. The 6th dot point is to be able to compare the process of negotiating enterprise / or collective agreements with the negotiation of individual contracts. Second last dot point, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing in the global market. And the final dot point I want you guys to make sure you get your heads around and start to think about now is to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of HR management for one business and recommend appropriate alternate strategies. All right, now I talked about a little bit of repetition before. That's what's good about business studies. You can get your head around it and it can help you remember the course. There's 4 business functions. Apart from HR that we're looking at now in the syllabus, they all have 4 parts. Not quite sure why HR have 5 parts. In theory, it would be good if all have 5 parts, because the additional section of the students learn about in terms of HR is the effectiveness criteria. I'd like to see that for each of the business functions, but you do what you do. So in terms of students learn about, these are things we're going to be looking at during class time in some depth. The first part of the student learn about is the role of HR, or when we do finance, the role of finance, or the role of marketing. The second part of the students learn about is the influence of human resources, or the influence of operations, how things impact that specific business function. The third part of the syllabus for each of these business functions is the processes. A process is a set of steps, step-by-step things you go through and do. So we'll look at the set of steps that are involved in the human resource business function. The last business function for all topics but the one we're looking at now are strategies. And you need to know all parts of the syllabus, but this is probably the most important part for each of the business functions. Strategies are what things a business manager, in terms of HR or operations or finance, can put in place to be able to improve things for the business. And we'll look at those set of strategies in a couple of minutes. Now that's it for the rest of the business functions. But in terms of human resources, there's an additional part to it. It's called the HR effectiveness criteria. And if something's effective, it's good. If something's ineffective, it's bad. But you need more than that in Year 12. You need a criteria to measure whether something is good or bad by. And that's the HR effectiveness criteria. Now, going back to the start of the students learn about, we take a look first at the role of human resource management. Role is the job, what it's there to do. Then we take a look at the strategic role of human resource management. Now, strategic is the long-term role. Depending on the textbook you're looking at, it has slight differences, but it is always the long-term role, and generally it's 3 or more years. Then we take a look at this concept of interdependence with other business functions. Interdependence is how does HR rely upon and work with, say, operations or finance? How do these business functions coordinate the resources and work together? And the last part of the role of HR is to take a look at this concept of outsourcing. Outsourcing is to get one of your business functions, give that to another business who specializes in that area, and they can do that for you. And we'll be looking at specifically outsourcing the HR business function and this concept of using contractors and domestic outsourcing versus global outsourcing and the pros and cons of both of those. And that's that first part of the role of human resource management. Now the second section, 1-2, that we take a look at with HR is the key influences, or other key influences, the things that impact upon human resource management and the wider business. The first one we need to understand are stakeholders. A stakeholder is someone who has an interest in the business, somebody who is involved in it. That's employees, the workers, the employers, the boss, employer associations, such as National Farmers Federation, somebody who's there to represent the interests of employers, the bosses. Unions, they're there to represent the interests of the employees. Various government organisations is another key stakeholder, and society as well. Each of these stakeholders have big influences in a business. We'll delve into that in lessons soon to come. The second key influence for HR are legal influences. And inside legal influences, we address what the current legal framework is. What's this notion of employment contract? Common law. Court-made law is common law. And that gives workers and bosses, employees and employers, certain rights that each get. But the flip side of rights are obligations that each of these have. And these are known as common law rights and obligations of employees and employers, and how that influences human resources of a business. We take a look at the minimum employment standards, minimum wage rates, awards, enterprise agreements, and the other employment contracts. Additional to legal, we have occupational health and safety. Now I've got to mention something on this. It's what it says in the syllabus. but syllabus is a little bit outdated. It's not as youthful as myself. And it's called workplace health and safety these days. I don't want to see you writing occupational health and safety. We write down workplace health and safety. And workers' compensation. Again, these are legal requirements and they influence the human resource management. We'll delve into that in a couple of weeks' time. Part of legal, the last part, is anti-discrimination and EEO, equal employment opportunity. We'll again address these influences a little bit later on how they impact HR. Now, there's another 4 other key influences on human resource management. They are economic, the upturn or the downturn in the economy, like say the GFC, and how that impacts upon HR. Downturn in the economy like the GFC, HR needs to separate a lot of the positions, retrain, and that's how it's going to impact it. The next influence is technological. Changes in technology like capital labour substitution. Machines every day are replacing the labour that's there. Who knows, one day I may not be there, teachers may not be there, you'll have machines doing the job instead of us. So look at these technological changes, how they impact on, how they influence or affect HR. Now there's social changes in society, and how that's going to impact on human resources as well. And that includes changing work patterns and changing living standards. Now, the last influence we see in HR are ethics and corporate social responsibility. That's that notion of CSR, or you might have heard the term before, TBL, not the biggest loser, triple bottom line. To be taking a look at not just the bottom line, which is profits, but to care about society and also to care about and have your social responsibility, but to care about environmental aspects as well. Now, that's the 2 parts so far of the students learn about, things you need to learn about, and I shall explicitly teach you over this term. The 3rd part is the processes of human resource management, the set of steps that a business will go through in terms of human resources. There's 4 key ones. Now, I'm just going to mention them briefly now. It's a lot more depth needed than what I'm just saying now, but it just gives you an idea of what they're about. Acquisition equals hiring workers. Again, if you just say that, that's like a band 3 response, but it gives you an idea what it's talking about, that process. Development equals training. And once again, there's far more depth to that. There's mentoring. We're talking about formal on-the-job training, formal off-the-job training, informal on-the-job training, and so on. There's maintenance. And we're talking about keeping workers at your business. Monetary and non-monetary rewards, as an example. And the final process is separation, cutting them loose, getting rid of them, voluntary or involuntary separation, those sort of things. And they're those 4 processes, the 4 set of steps that the HR manager will go through in their role, in their job. Now, this is not the last part of HR, but it would be the last part of every other business function. And this is a key one I want you guys to notice. Strategies. What things a business can put in place to fix things up, to deal with the influences, to deal with the processes. Things a business can put in place to improve things. Now there's, a quick look, 8 strategies that HR management can implement. One is leadership style. And we took a little bit of a look at this with management approaches in the Year 11 course. And so we're talking about an aspect of management approach, a part of management approach, such as the democratic leadership style, participative, or the autocratic leadership style, or laissez-faire leadership style. And depending on which business you have, certain leadership styles can be beneficial. Now, the second strategy that you would use include to have job design. Now, there's general and specific tasks that you would give people when you're designing the job that they will be doing. Do you want broad tasks they do or narrow specific tasks? And we'll delve into that in a bit. Now, the third strategy we have is recruitment. You can internally recruit from inside your business or get workers from outside the business. And there's pros and cons with both of those that we will look at and address depending on the situation. Now, the next strategy is training and development, and how to train workers, what options there are, and how to develop them for the future, for the business and for themselves. We take a look at the difference between developmental or administrative performance management and the pros and cons of both of those and how they can be used together sometimes. The third last strategy are rewards. So we take a look at monetary versus non-monetary rewards and what individual or group rewards are and linking it to performance-based pay. The second last strategy are global, cost, skills and supply, and this is to do with outsourcing and reducing costs, making sure you've got the available skill set you need, making sure you've got enough workers, the supply is there, and how this outsourcing, global outsourcing, can be beneficial. The last strategy we take a look at is workplace disputes. Now, having a fight in the workplace, which is a workplace disputes, is not a strategy. But we take a look at how we can resolve these disputes, resolution, negotiation, mediation, etc., etc. Now, the last thing that we'll take a look at in terms of HR is the effectiveness, how good or bad HR management is. We look at things like corporate culture, benchmarking key variables, the changes in staff turnover, levels of absenteeism, and the accidents that happen within a workplace, even death sometimes. We take a look at the levels of disputes, the levels of issues, strikes, etc., and worker satisfaction. All of this stuff will be looked at towards the end of the course. And it's a great way to evaluate, to look at whether a business has been doing well or not. All right, thanks guys, and I'll see you in class.